Welcome to the HR Chat Show, one of the world's most downloaded and shared podcasts designed for HR pros, talent execs, tech enthusiasts, and business leaders. For hundreds more episodes and what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.
Welcome to another episode of the HR Chat Show. Hello, listeners. This is your host today, Bill Banham. And joining me back on the show, I think for the third time, and he's also been on our sister show, the People and Performance Pod, is the awesome, amazing Bryan Adams, CEO and founder over at Happy Dance. And he's also a 2 times best-selling author with 20 plus years in employer branding. Bryan, how are you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Bill. Yeah, I'm good. It's sunny in Surrey, UK, so can't complain. Lots to be happy about.
Sunny in Surrey. I'll tell you where else was sunny was Vegas. I briefly saw you in Vegas at HR Tech when we were walking the aisles back in September. How's that for you as an event? Do you guys get much out of that? What are some other events that you guys make sure that you're at every year?
Yeah, so we like that one just as a sort of touch base and a little bit of temperature check on the industry, actually, and keep an eye on some competitors, what's new, what's popping up, what are people talking about, and then there's a sort of, well, you're part of it, like the people that you sort of really like to hang out with and just relax with and talk about the industry and all the rest of it in a sort of, it's the sort of community opportunity. And it doesn't hurt to be in sunshine in Vegas. That's always a nice one to look forward to. And then Wreckfest in Nashville is a sort of always on the calendar for us as well. Yeah, and then we like to hang out where we can learn and just build community. We're a usual suspect in that in those spaces.
Yeah, I was chatting to your colleague Mel before the Wreckfest in Nashville last year. I was very jealous. I wanted to be back in Nashville doing the honky tonk, going to Mike's barbecue. It's a pretty special city, that's for sure. Okay, let's talk about this year though. What's new for you guys? We're recording this interview in January 2026. What's new at Happy Dance? What are you up to? What's the team most excited about for the year ahead?
Yeah, so we're in a really privileged position at the moment. Like we've just launched the Uber's new career site, which is amazing. I'm really, really proud of that. A big project for the team. HubSpot have just come on board, and we just continue to work with some amazing brands. And what that means is, it gives us the sort of confidence and also opportunity to learn from our customers in terms of like what they want, and we're always pouring their ideas or their problems and challenges and issues into the tech roadmap at Happy Dance. And I think, Bill, because we only focus on just the career site, it really gives us the opportunity to go deep and just own that little space and really innovate, try new things, and so on and so forth. So we've got our job matching, our smart employer brand manager. We've got the culture compass. So there's a lot about personalization and really trying to help the candidate get to the truth of what it's like to work at our customers' organizations, as well as the big thing for our customers now. I'm sure we'll get into this with the rise of AI and all the rest of it, is not so much trying to attract an increased volume of applicants. It's more trying to qualify, because across the board, we're noticing this, the noise is getting louder and the signal is getting harder to find in terms of what's a good candidate, because everybody's a cyborg these days. They're all sort of, using AI to sort of level up their CV and make sure it matches with skills and so on and so forth. So an element of smart assessment and better matching is essentially what we're focused in on. So we're really excited about the space at the moment, because it's a brand new challenge. And being 20 years a lover of employer brand, we're also saying that, like, now is for me, it's the year. I've said this a couple of times actually. So, but I think now is the year for employer brand to really finally reach maturity and be respected at the C-suite level, because it's an essential tool to really confident and declaratively show the world exactly who you are as a company, and not just the hype of what you offer talent, but finally being super clear with what your expectations are in return and what it takes to thrive in an organization and contribute to what the real capability needs to be for an organization. So it's a perfect storm of those things at the moment, Bill, which makes it a very exciting place for us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the HR Chat Podcast. If you enjoy the audio content we produce, you'll love our articles on the HR Gazette. Learn more at hrgazette.com. And now, back to the show.
Okay, lots of interesting things that you said there. I was going to take you to point on this culture compass, because I think that sounds awesome. But actually, what you said just at the end there, in terms of the employer brand, the opportunity today in 2026 is being, I think you said something along the lines of being more clear around the expectations of the candidate. That's really interesting. So let's just pull that apart a little bit more. 5 years ago, I was doing interviews on this show, and what the employer brand essentially meant, or at least what I was taking from that, is getting ahead of your competitors and finding top talent was the term that everybody was using at the time. You know, the war for talent. It ain't like that anymore. A lot of these, certainly entry-level jobs, have been replaced. You and I both know this. The job market is being squeezed. So, are you saying that the employer brand, what that means now, in practice, is actually it's a tool, for want of a better term, in terms of identifying the right fit for a company? Maybe they don't have all of the qualifications, but they've got the mindset to learn new tools, to learn AI and whatnot. So the employer brand today is actually about being able to present yourself in a way that you can be more selective about who you bring into the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's a step before that, because what you just said there is on the assumption that an organization is clear and confident on what those things are, you know? So I think in the past, employer brand's been about being more shiny and more hyped and more attractive, which is a word I've got a real issue with. So you can be more shiny than competitors and just attract more candidates and applications. And that's just not the case now. It's much more it's much closer. What we're seeing anyway with the customers and the brands that are getting ahead and really sort of leaning into a mature approach. Employer brand is a lot closer to business strategy, such that we understand that if culture can be a competitive advantage, what culture do we have? What behaviors and characteristics and ultimately capability do we require from our talent, which is different to skills, in order to create a galvanized culture that is effective enough to move the organization forward? Now, there's some big stuff in there, and it's all leadership level business strategy, rather than on the periphery, where, look, we just need something shiny and attractive to make us stand out, and all those things that you said. So yeah, that's how the landscape has changed in my view, and it presents a huge opportunity to finally leverage talent as the ultimate competitive advantage. And that I've been talking about this for years and years now, but finally I think leaders are catching on to this, and technology is such that everything is possible.
Okay, everything is possible. So is this the year then, Bryan? Because 2025 was, let's face it, one of the toughest years for talent attraction and recruitment. I've got buddies who run recruitment firms for 20 plus years, for example, and they've said to me, Bill, we've never known a time like it. What signals are you seeing for 2026?
Well, I think the first thing is, you're right. Let's acknowledge how tough that was in 2025, and not a lot has changed in the world and the sort of business landscape. The only thing that's changed is, I think we've all realized that the volatility and change isn't going away. So those that are waiting for it to end have now finally realized, actually, this is kind of reality and we need to get on with stuff. So, you know, we're moving ahead and all the rest of it. But one of the biggest challenges has been the disparate void in between the talent leaders that have just got to run behind a company moving fast and trying to deal with change, not having appropriate or any visibility on resource planning and what's required to support an organization in transition, finding out talent demands at the last minute, and then everything's a crisis. It's the perfect storm. I think now that's finally, if the last 6 or 9 months was that sort of frenetic sort of panic or constant change such that the world was always turbulent, I think now we're starting to get ahead of that a little bit and start to plan for a future that just includes continual transition and change for the time being. So we've been through some very early stages of difficulty, and I think it's just a case of we're pulling together, getting our head around the current situation and having to move forward. So yeah, the outside conditions are still very similar. It's just a case of I think we've all got used to it now.
Yeah, you've said something very similar to someone who summed it up for me. Slightly different. Just last week, he used the expletive, but it was along the lines of people are now at the point, Bill, where they've gotten used to the uncertainty and they're like, "F it, we're just going to get on and do some business in 2026." So
yeah, if there was a T-shirt to describe how everybody felt and like the sentiment of the moment, it would probably be what you just said. Yeah.
Brave new world. Okay, so let's talk about AI. You briefly touched upon AI earlier. There's no question that AI and automation is changing the talent landscape, Bryan. But what's the most significant impact AI is having on how companies are attracting, engaging, and hiring talent at the moment?
So the first big, overwhelming challenge that most of our customers and the community is facing is now all candidates are made equal. Like the CVs are all spot on, they're ideally matched to the job description. Miraculously, they have the vast majority of skills that are a prerequisite. Their letters are eloquently crafted and so on, so forth. So, and because of the use of AI in order to do that, it's also easier to apply for roles. So volumes across the board are going up. Like we're seeing across our entire portfolio of career sites, the average number of applicants per vacant role is increasing all the time. In some cases, it's 4 or 5-fold. And that creates a tremendous challenge for organizations trying to sift through all of this. What do we do with it? Like we're literally building technology to sort of then deal with the onslaught of increased volume of applicants. So actually, like we talked about this many years ago, and it's sort of coming back. It's like, okay, so how do we better assess at scale? How do we deal with that volume, such not to overwhelm our recruiters, not to present bias, and also not to miss out on the best talent possible? So, that's been a doozy of a challenge that we've sort of really faced into, and we've come up with some really interesting, creative ways to tackle it. And then, so we could talk about that and all of the amazing sort of features and functions and tools and sort of process that we're putting in place. The flip side to that is a lot of organizations are still grappling with the legal and compliance side of being able to use AI. So the precarious sort of situation that we're in, and a lot of our competitors and the whole landscape is dealing with the transition of a complete variety of organizations at different stages of appetite for the new technology. But this hasn't stopped candidates using AI and applying for more jobs and all the rest of it. So that's been the biggest change, certainly. And the point about employer brand maturing such that it's now a strategy trying to help candidates decide not to apply by giving them real, truthful, authentic stories of how difficult it might be if you haven't got certain capabilities. Trying to assess for soft skills like learning agility, resilience, adaptability, commitment, determination, and those sorts of things. as well as understanding the culture and selecting an organization that you think you'll thrive in. So there's a lot going on, Bill, because the challenges are real. I don't think we've faced anything quite like this before. So there's definitely going to be a lot of change in the landscape in the next 12 months, certainly.
So does it mean the hiring process has changed a little bit then? So if you've got all of these cover letters and resumes, which are 100% correct, they're perfect, they've got all the right keywords and all the rest of it. Does that mean that there needs to be an extra interview in the hiring stage? What are the guardrails to make sure that you can sort of sift through the rubbish and actually get to what those real experiences and skills of the candidates? Can you give us an insight around that?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of organizations, and obviously role by role, it can vary. But a lot of organizations are moving back to in-person selection events and in-person interviews and so on and so forth, to look people in the eye and really get an idea of who they are. That's not possible for different types of roles, of course. It's not necessarily putting extra steps in, but it's looking at every step and really understanding, okay, what's the intentionality that we're putting here with our candidate experience, start to end? And it's now less about time to offer and time to hire, and more about time to meaningful engagement. And it's less about quantity and very much more about quality. And just a couple of years ago, everything was about removing friction and making it easier, because that was stopping the volume of applicants, which everybody desperately wants. And now we're increasingly talking to our customers about friction by design. Like, if there is a fiery hoop that we can create such that only qualified candidates will jump through, what does that look like, and how is it best representative of your culture? So the sort of culture compass experience you'll go through, where we can match whether your mindset is a match for the culture. We can look at the skills and experience, and instead of showing a candidate 1,200 jobs, we can say, look, we think you're a good fit, or a well matched, not fit, a good match for just these roles. And then beyond the application, which our journey has stopped as a technology company. We are then making sure that there's some continuity and consistency, and TA leaders are taking that very seriously, as I say, in terms of, okay, how do we now qualify and narrow down the selection in a smart way? And I'm seeing them having to come up with very different solutions as from time gone by. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Absolutely.
You and I both spent a lot of time in North America. We both know right now, specifically in the US, there's been lots of rollbacks around equity. A few years ago, before the current administration got in, Sherm made the decision to get rid of the E in DEI, which caused a big hoo-ha at the time. How's that translating into companies that you're working with? You mentioned a couple of amazing new companies that you guys are working with, Uber being one of them. Are you seeing this with the companies that you work with, in terms of less of a focus on that on the equity piece?
The quick answer is no. I think it's just becoming part of a wider cultural conversation of, are we a good match for you? Going back to values, how it feels, the reality of employee experience, and this is showing the rise of storytelling at a brand level, to create more relevance and engagement at a brand level. But then from a social proof and authenticity perspective, encouraging employees to tell their stories, where DEI messaging is still coming through, and is still very vibrantly important to most of our customers, actually, but it's just being labeled and positioned differently. And I actually think we might look back in a few years' time, and although many of us might disagree with the force of change for taking these labels and looking at DEI differently. Actually, the outcome, I think, has been, and it is continuing to be, extremely positive, because it's forced us to really appreciate what a galvanized culture and what inclusivity can achieve, and the power of being open and authentic about what it really takes to thrive in an organization, how it feels, where people get their sense of purpose, impact, and belonging inside of an organization, which is the heart and soul of DEI. It just doesn't need the label. So those things have definitely not gone away. They certainly haven't slowed down, quite the opposite. But I think it's been positioned in a more valuable, effective way, if anything, actually.
Okay, you mentioned a moment ago, important to be authentic, of course. Just a quick follow-up on that. How much authenticity is too much authenticity, I guess? How much truth is too much truth when you're trying to project that employer brand? How much can you give away? How much do you need to retain to be an attractive employer?
Well, do you need to be an attractive employer? I think I would challenge that, that assumption, because we live in a world of transparency, whether we like it or not. It's just a case of, are we confident and comfortable with what the truth is around what it feels like to be part of this organization, what the give and get proposition truly is? And I think, we really need to dig under this little sort of topic and unearth and appreciate the value of knowing exactly what it really is like and what it really does take to thrive inside of an organization. And organizations waking up to the idea that, look, if you grip this, you can wield it in such a way that you can galvanize a culture that really does have the true capability required to move forward in this volatile transitional landscape and come out a winner. So there's places like Glassdoor, and there's so many destinations now that every just mainstream social media channel where people will be super quick to tell you what they think about an organization from the inside out. So owning that, defending it where appropriate, because sometimes it is appropriate, or learning from it and fixing it is another opportunity. But more than anything else, leaning into it so you can at least influence the narrative and add the context. Sometimes people complain about an organization because they don't have what it takes to thrive. It's not their fault, because they bought into the hype on the front end. And when they got on the inside of the organization, they found something that they weren't expecting. That doesn't mean that it's a bad culture. And it doesn't mean that that is a bad employee either. It just means that the match wasn't smart and it wasn't a good idea from the outset. And I think now we're in a world where we've got the opportunity to fix both sides of that equation very eloquently, where everybody benefits. The candidates benefit from not applying in the first place or being displaced quickly. And the organization benefits from hiring people who are expecting those challenges as much as the upside and the opportunity and all of the positivity that comes along with working in a great company as well.
Very good. And regular listeners of the show know that I love a shameless plug. Bryan mentioned Glassdoor. Listeners, please do check out my HR chat episode with recently he's now just left it, so he's now the former CEO of Glassdoor, Christian Sutherland Wong. It was a good conversation from a couple of years ago. Bryan, before we wrap up for today, sir, what's coming up for you? Any events, for example, that you want to highlight that you're involved with? Any white papers, any initiatives that you want to talk about? How can folks connect with you? Tell us more.
Yeah, so we're doubling down on a lot of really good, valuable content on our website at the moment, which is happydance.love, Love. I can be found on LinkedIn, always quite active on LinkedIn. It's Bryan Adams, just like the Canadian singer, with a number 1. If you type that in, you'll find me, or Bryan Adams Happy Dance. I'll be at TA Week next week, but I think that will have happened by the time this comes out in San Diego. I'll I'll be in Nashville again later in the year. And I've got my third book coming out in September, which is called Sell the Truth. We know the value of telling the truth, but in this world, we need to learn to sell it with authenticity. So that's a storytelling and employee brand strategy book coming out in September. Look out for that on Amazon and all good reputable bookstores.
I have a funny feeling we're going to get you back on the show around about September, Bryan.
Look forward to it.
That just leaves me to say for today, though, thank you very much for returning to the show. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. Delighted to hear that you're back over this side of the pond more these days. So hopefully we can get together soon and have a coffee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look forward to that. Thanks again, Bill.
And listeners, as always, until next time, happy working.
Thanks for listening to the HR Chat Show. If you enjoyed this episode, why not subscribe and listen to some of the hundreds of episodes published by HR Gazette? And remember, for what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.